The upcoming 5.1 patch is absolutely stacked with great 5 stars that you can pick for your account. But with the ever-increasing, extremely powerful different types of teams in Genshin Impact, it's very hard to figure out which one is actually worth it for you. So in this video, I'm going to go through exactly which accounts will do best with each of the 4 5 stars coming in Genshin Impact 5.1 to help you figure out which one is worth it for you. Welcome to Jello Impact, where we build and test every single character to help you decide who you want to wish for and build. Starting with Xilonen, and this is the one that we're the least sure about because we obviously haven't actually played her yet. I'm going to go through most of the 5 stars in the game and basically rank them as to how good of synergies they are with the 5 star that we're considering. This is kind of based on my philosophy that you pick your favorite characters and build strong teams around them. It's sort of a super specialized version of this video I made right here, who are the must pulls in Natlan Genshin Impact Wishing Guide. So if you like the way that I'm talking about this, go watch that video. I'll link it at the end. So Xilonen, who should pull Xilonen? That's what we're trying to figure out here. She doesn't have a construct, so Chiori lovers, not particularly recommended. And this is obviously in the context of pulling to strengthen that team. That's how we're talking about this. Obviously, if you love Xilonen, you need to pull Xilonen. That's a given. That's an obvious. Best in slot option, strong option, decent option, and nah. I'm not gonna really count Kazuha. We don't really pull Xilonen for a Kazuha. Kazuha's a support. For Ayaka, no. Child, no. Child, hold on. Could you replace Kazuha on a national team? Maybe. I think it could be a strong option, actually, because you get the buff, you get the resistance shred, you get some crystallizes for some interruption resistance. I think it might be a strong option for single target Child players, but Child's main thing is grouping. So for that reason, I'm going to put it only at a decent option. And that's the same with Ayaka Freeze. I think Ayaka Freeze is even more reliant on having good grouping. So I'm going to put Ayaka and Na and Child in decent. Zhongli is a support, so not really going to pull a character for a support. She won't particularly make Albedo stronger. She kind of replaces Albedo in some of the stronger teams. So Albedo's a Na. Melt Ganyu, so she could replace Zhongli on a Melt Ganyu team, and you would get a lot more damage. The occasional crystallize, maybe you could like walk around as you're charging to try and pick up a crystallize to get a bit of interruption resistance. I think it could be a strong option. I doubt it ends up being better than Farina Bennett Xiangling, which is my current favorite Ganyu team. I know it doesn't have a shielder at all. It's worth trying. I'm definitely going to try it. Make sure you subscribe for my Xilonen guide. Well, I'll be testing all of this stuff. I'll be testing Xilonen with Melt Ganyu and with Child because I've built every single character. It'll probably like I tested 60 teams. So make sure you subscribe and watch the video for that. I want to get this out there in case you're just really antsy to pull, but if you really want to know for a fact which characters are best, I'm going to put subject to change. But if you truly want to make sure that she's actually going to be good for the teams that you pull her for, wait for that full guide where I test her with every single team. But that actually sounds pretty interesting to me. I feel like it won't be better than Farina, but it could be a strong option. Zhao, no, Zhao really wants, like, she doesn't buff Animo, so Zhao is a big no. Maybe the biggest no yet. I don't think that you're gonna be doing any aggravate stuff. Like, it's gonna be decent-ish, but Kazuha does a lot of damage on aggravate teams with his own swirls. So, and the grouping is very important. Aggravate is an AoE team, and so without grouping, without his swirls, I think it's going to be at best a decent option, maybe even a Na. So for Yaimiko aggravate, yeah. Ito, I think, is going to be a Na. It could be a decent option, but Xilonen doesn't give her Geo buff unless you have 2 swirlable elements on the team, and Ito only gets the best Goro buff if you have 3 Geo on the team, so they're mutually exclusive for their best synergies, essentially. So I think I'm gonna go for Na, but it could be a decent option. Shenhe, same as Ayaka. Yelan, similar, like Yelan's more of a support, so you don't really pull Xilonen for like a Yelan team. Yelan has too many teams, so I'm gonna move Yelan down. Xilonen on an Ayato team. I think this is pretty similar to Child, where Ayato's, again, his best thing is grouping, so to not have Kazuha, like, I think it'll be a decent option. It'll really depend on the Abyss. I don't know. I think it'll be decent. For Raiden, I think this should be a pretty strong option. Raiden, Yelan, Farina, Xilonen as a replacement to Jean or Shenyun, I think should be an upgrade for Raiden in that team. I don't know if it'll be better than Chevreuse. I'm also really liking Emily Bennett Xiangling these days. I think it'll be one of Raiden's strong teams. Whether it's a better team, like a best-in-slot team, that's the jury's still out. Probably not, but who knows? Maybe. Eula, she does, like, Xilonen doesn't buff physical, so that's a no. Ooh, Cyno, that's kind of an interesting one, because Cyno, yeah, he does aggravate, and he wants to do Hyper Bloom for his main stuff, but one of his biggest things is that the buffs don't last long enough, so you might be able to get this might be a decent option for Cyno, actually. So what would you do? Could you do Shenhe Nahida Xilonen, and Xilonen buffs Shenhe and Cyno? You'd start with Cyno's skill, and the buff might actually last long enough. That actually might be a strong option. Ooh, I'm kind of curious to see Cyno. Maybe there's something wrong about it that I'm missing, but I think it could be okay. That's something to look out for. That's something I'm going to talk about. I'm going to cover. Nahida is a support that creates teams, so we're not going to put her. Nilou is nah. Wanderer, no. Dea, mostly a support. We're not going to consider DPS Dea for this. Alhaitham, she doesn't buff Dendro, so that's a no. Tighnari, same thing. Hu Tao, probably a best in slot option. I'm going to put probably here, and then probably for these as well, just because I want to make it clear that we haven't tested Xilonen yet. But Hu Tao, Farina, Yelan, Xilonen should be Hu Tao's best team. It should outpace Shenhe a little bit because you're buffing Hu Tao a bit more. Hard to say. It might be about the same. I find Shenhe a bit, probably still will stay a bit more fun, but it might be a new best in slot team overall. You still don't get the damage bonus, but at least you get the resistance shred. So especially if you have like a cracked Hu Tao, especially if you have a C1 Hu Tao, it's probably a best in slot option for her, but maybe even at C0, it's still best in slot. I'll let you know. Keqing, I'm going to go with Na because she's even more than Yoimiya is reliant on AoE. It's Keqing's AoE burst and quick swappy potential back to Kazuha for grouping that makes her good. Whereas Yoimiya at least does a bit more single target damage herself. So I'm going to put Keqing especially Na. Venti, nothing to do with each other. Mona, a support. Chevreuse teams. Shenhe teams is a complete competitor with Shenhe teams. Gaming, let me think. I think Gaming, it's probably a decent option for Gaming, but you'd never, like, I doubt, like, there's no way it's better than Shenhe for him, right? I mean, maybe somehow. Probably a decent option. So we'll put it there. I don't know. Aggravate teams, no. Ningguang, I mean, Ningguang is just so bad. I'm not gonna rate Ningguang. Emily teams, I think Emily is too flexible. Doesn't really have Emily just is like burning teams. Well, actually no, Emily is just no, because Emily, she doesn't buff Dendro, so they really don't go together. Hyper Bloom teams, I mean, what could you, I'm using Kuki as like a stand-in for Hyper Bloom, so what would you do? You do like Farina, Nahida, Yelan, Kuki, and again no, because it's Dendro damage, so no. Chlorand, it's probably decent, but it's not the fact that Chlorand can't apply off-field Electro means that you'll either have to waste her burst or run Fischl, which really takes away your other options, and it probably just won't work out. Again, you probably really want Kazuha, and Chevreuse is just better for the non-Kazuha options, so I'm gonna put her here. I think she'll have worse synergy than Raiden. Sejuin, direct competitor. Kanich, no. Mualani, probably a best in slot option. This is sort of interesting. It kind of makes you realize that Xilonen isn't as universal as she seems at first when you sort of take like a real good look at this. It's still going to be a lot of teams though. As long as Xilonen doesn't cause too many vapes to be stolen from Mualani when you're running Mualani, Farina, Xilonen, and Xiangling, as long as Xiangling still has enough pyro option, this could make, if it hums, if it sings, it could make Mualani insane. At worst, it'll be an even more inconsistent team that's even higher up in peak power for Mualani. So Mualani continues her trend of high highs and pretty high lows. It could make her like insane. Like if it hums perfectly, it could make her as good as Novelette or better. I doubt it though. I expect it to be a little bit inconsistent, which will make her sometimes the best and often pretty good. Often very good, but you know, Fremine, again, physical, it doesn't buff. Arlecchino, Arlecchino should be a strong option with Arlecchino, sort of mono pyro or vape. Yeah, it should be a strong option. Diluc, no, because you just want plunge. There could be some melt Diluc stuff, so if you want to get dank, maybe it's decent. Novelette, it's probably a best in slot option. This one's pretty much for sure. The only consideration is maybe you'll really miss the Kazuha the Zhongli interruption resistance. There's 2 counterpoints to that. 1, Xilonen makes some crystallizes, which does help. And 2, if it should be a pretty large damage increase for him, and if you're killing the enemies faster, they have less chances to stagger you. So it could be that you just end up killing enemies so fast that even if you are staggered, it doesn't really matter because you're killing them so much faster than you were with Zhongli. And the 1 or 2 crystallizes you do get are enough to last you most of the time. So I think that this should make Neuvillette an even better character. Finally, the buff we always wanted for Neuvillette that he needed to feel good, he'll finally get. Baiju she's a direct competitor to Linny. I do expect this to be quite a strong option. Very similar to everything I said about Arlecchino. Yeah. Farina, I know I don't normally do supports, but she's like the best healer. It's like she's the craziest healer so far, and even though she is a single target healer, getting any amount of fanfare is still really, really good. I'm still not gonna rank her again because she's a support, but still a very strong character. For Wriothesley, right now Wriothesley's best thing is same as with Ganyu is Farina Bennett Xiangling, but I think Xilonen will be a good option as well. So yeah. And then Navia, it will almost definitely be a best on slot option for Navia. Actually taking advantage of her whole kit as opposed to Chiori, where she only takes advantage of half the kit. Zhongli, she doesn't really need the interruption resistance that Zhongli provides. I do expect it to be a best in slot option with Navia. And I think that pretty much covers it. So if we take away like the characters that are generally considered, like, that we don't really consider here. Like, oh, there's Klee and Yoimiya. Klee and Yoimiya also probably a strong option, and probably a strong option for Yoimiya as well. I'm kind of curious. I'm really, for Yoimiya, a lot of it really hinges on how many crystallizes she can make. I'm guessing it's probably not that many, in which case it might only be a decent option. And Klee really wants the grouping, so it might only be a decent option as well. Hard to say. Hard to say. Basically, except for Dendro and Anemo, except for Dendro damage and Anemo damage, most of the meta characters are an upgrade or a side grade with Xilonen. And Kazuha, like, he kind of works for the Anemo damage on the Anemo teams, but he doesn't work with physical or Dendro either. So yeah, pretty interesting list. This makes me really excited for teams and made me think of different teams that I didn't really consider. So that's Xilonen. Let's move on to Chiori. That's going to be a lot shorter. So Chiori is one of my favorite designs in the game, and unfortunately she doesn't have that amazing synergies right now. I do expect future characters to come out that give her better synergies, but right now she just doesn't have that great of synergies. I'm going to make a whole Chiori video pretty soon, but basically she requires a construct at C0 to properly function, and lots of characters just don't provide a construct at C1. She just requires another Geo character, which opens up her teams a lot. But yeah, so this makes her often a best in slot option for Zhongli teams. It's kind of like, it's sort of a best in slot synergy, not really a best in slot option. And even then, Zhongli's strongest option is often a Neuvillette team or an Arlecchino team, which often doesn't run Chiori. It can be quite good, but yeah, even though they have good synergy, Chiori would prefer this other Geo character to do a lot of damage. Like, you kind of want a second Chiori almost for her to really pop off. I was really hoping that Xilonen would be a construct character, but unfortunately she's not. Kachina, on the other hand, has a great synergy with her and really opens up a lot of really funky teams. Like, so Neuvillette, Kachina, Chiori, and Kazuha is surprisingly really good and very comfy. And in single target or AoE that doesn't need to be grouped, it performed for me very similarly to the Kazuha level. So I'm going to put these in like the strong option category, because it's obviously not best in slot for Neuvillette, but it is very strong. So if you like want to just run Chiori in a strong team, Chiori, Kachina, Neuvillette is very strong. The problem with it is it wastes Neuvillette's passive, which gives a really big buff. So yeah, it is really good. And I'm gonna call, like, so it's Hu Tao, Chiori, Zhongli, and Yelan. It is a strong team. Some Hu Tao combos cause you to miss vapes because of all the geo application. I found it vape pretty consistently, but it depends on the combos you're doing. The more common combos are generally fine, and the more sweaty tryhards, But I think the reason why I'm still confident recommending this team is because Chiori is basically a good option for Zhongli teams, and those often are a bit of a downgrade in terms of peak damage for more comfort, and so Chiori is good for those teams in that way. Like it's hard to say whether it's like a strong or decent option, because when it's strong, it's like a comfy option. It's like strong enough comfy option. That's kind of how Chiori's teams are. This is na 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 na. No, 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 no. Ito, she actually is best in slot 4, and if you want your Ito to be maxed, you definitely want to pop Chiori on your Ito team. Kinich really wants burning, hard to reconcile those. Linny, strong enough, comfy option. Same with Wanderer. Navia, now she was a best in slot option for Navia, but as of Xilonen, she is now only a strong enough option. Albedo, I really wish an Albedo Chiori combo was better. Shenhe no, Gaming, I don't know. I didn't play Gaming yet. I haven't played him in a really long time. Risley no, Cryo needs help. Hytham, he really wants Nahida and Electro. I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna put Yelan under decent option because you can do, well, no, Yelan's just a support. I'm gonna keep doing what I've been doing. Tenari no, Shenyan no, Arlecchino, it's a strong enough comfy option, same with Linny. Mualani, you can do like Zhongli, Chiori, Xiangling, or Kachina Chiori. Like, Kachina was legitimately a buff to Chiori, especially if you do have C6 Kachina and you actually build her for damage, which I understand that most people won't do, especially since, like, surely there's another off-field construct character coming sometime, especially a Natlin one that gives the Natlin support set. It just would have been so good if Xilonen made a construct, man. That would have been so good. Emily really wants burning. Emily's kind of like Chiori, but better. Emily's like better Chiori. And then actually a pretty solid option for Clorand as well. And Klee really wants AoE. I don't know why I'm putting yoimiya down here. It's fine. It's all fine. Basically, it's all fine. Like, this is just the situation with Chiori. She's definitely a getter if you like her character. You don't really ever pull her for meta, which is fine. Not every character is going to be meta, but I love her design, so it's a shame that she's not, like, more meta. I think she could be, but it's not there yet. Nahida. I know some people like to cope and put Albedo on a Hyperbloom team with Nahida because he buffs EM. I mean, okay. It's still not super good, but it's okay, I guess. Chiori, nah. I don't know. I think I'm gonna, yeah, this is best in slot option for Clorand. You can either do Thrilling Tales or Wandering Even Star or Widsith on your Nahida, Aggravate or Hyperbloom stuff. Yeah, Nahida, best in slot for Clorand. I consider personally both Aggravate and Chevreuse to be best in slot. Just it depends on if you're fighting like multi-wave stuff or groupable stuff or whatever. I'm gonna put decent or niche option because there are sometimes, I don't know about Linny, but there are sometimes, is there any time when you play her with Linny? I don't think so, but there's some like national with Nahida is a thing sometimes. I think though it's still, yeah, I don't know, strong option for Novelette. Technically Novelette Burn Vape can be really good, but I think even that's not like best in the slot anymore now that we have Emily, but it's definitely a strong option. Mualani, definitely a strong option. You'd never play her with Navia. I don't think you ever play with Arlecchino unless you just need it for like an elemental check, but I don't really think that's worth like considering for this type of list. Like you can tech Nahida, yeah, when you need to break a Hydro Shield or something like that, but yeah, all these characters, it's mostly Zhongli. I know some people, I like kind of like Burjin Hu Tao, but I kind of prefer it with Baiju. But there's sometimes you can do Hu Tao stuff, and I mean, oh yeah, there's Burjin Klee. Right, Burjin Klee. That's a decent or niche option. I don't know if I'd put Burjin Klee as a strong option these days. I feel like Burjin has kind of fallen off a little bit in terms of like by itself. I'd say Nahida is definitely a strong option. It's pretty close to a best in slot option for Kinich, but it's definitely strong. Sino, definitely a best in slot. Ayaka, no. I mean, you could do Hyperfridge Ayaka, but it's not a thing anymore. No. Alhaitham, it's definitely best in slot. Spread Alhaitham, Hyperbloom Alhaitham, both really want Nahida. You can get away without it, obviously, but yeah. Emily really doesn't want to be paired with Nahida. You kind of choose Emily if you're ever running kind of pyro kind of stuff, and Nahida if not. So yeah, Tainari, best in slot option for sure. Xilonen doesn't work with Geo. Cryo, you can do burn melt with Risley. I'm gonna put it in strong option. I think Emily's a little bit better, and I don't even prefer Burn, but it's a strong option for sure, no doubt about it. Raiden. Do you put Hyperbloom Raiden as her best in slot team? For C0 Raiden, it's like maybe, but I don't know. It's a strong option. It could be considered a best in slot option. Because Nahida double Hydro Raiden, it doesn't have a healer, but it is really, really strong. Is it stronger than a really well-built Raiden National? I don't know. It depends. Like, you could call it situationally best in slot. I'm going to put it in strong option because I'm not willing to call Hyperbloom Raiden her best team. Should I be? I did really like it the last time I played it. I don't know. Know that I'm very torn about this, and I really don't know which one it goes in. Don't take it too seriously, please. Please don't argue too much in the comments about that. I'm tired of that. A strong option for Yai. Yai, Farina, Nahida, Siegeween is one of my favorite Yai teams. But yeah, strong option. I'm gonna say strong option. Ayato works on a variety of Dendro teams, whether it be Hyperbloom, Nilou, different stuff. So strong option. Yeah, for Nilou, she needs Nahida. Like, this is a must. There's some characters that maybe it should be even higher, that it's like a must pull. I don't know. But yeah, it's still a very, very strong best in slot option for a lot of these characters. This is ordered, I guess, in terms of how best in slot they are. I don't know. All of them except for Raiden are like true best in slot, and then Raiden's like one of the best in slot options. And I think this is the situation for Nahida. And this is why like Nahida isn't as broken godlike as she used to be, because a lot of the strongest characters don't use her anymore. Hyperbloom is not as strong as it used to be, but it is still very, very strong, especially if you don't have 5-star weapons. Like, you don't have any 5-star weapons, you don't have any constellations, you're all free to play, but you've got, and your artifacts aren't that great, then Hyperbloom, like with Raiden, becomes even better. So yeah, I think this is the Nahida stuff. And finally, Hu Tao. Who should get Hu Tao? She doesn't work with Raiden. There's some stuff that works with Nahida. I'm going to put it in niche. We just talked about that. This time we're going to put a lot more supports onto the list, and a lot of DPSs we're not going to put on the list because the other 3 characters were sort of more off-field. Now we're talking about more on-field characters, so obviously on-field characters aren't going to work with Hu Tao. Since Raiden is sometimes used as support, I'll leave her here. Albedo, I'd say, is a decent option these days. I know back in the day, Double Geo was one of Hu Tao's strongest teams, but I would call it just a decent option nowadays. In the past, Ayaka, you'd use like Hu Tao as Ayaka as a melt setter upper for Hu Tao. I think those days are sort of gone, but I'm going to include it here just in case it's left over. I'm going to say that Emily is sort of a strong option for Hu Tao. Like, you don't really want burning, but you can do a mono pyro Hu Tao team with Emily. Like, Hu Tao's got good multipliers. It's still going to be good. Zhongli is just like a strong option. I'm not going to call it a best in slot option anymore, but a lot of people still really use it. It is very comfy, but it is still, and it is a strong option for sure. I used to play some double cryo back in the day with like Rosaria Shenhe or Ganyu Shenhe as like a freeze kind of support if I needed the elements for when I had way less characters, but it's not really a thing anymore. Xilonen should be a best in slot option, so if you're planning on getting Hu Tao, just be aware that both of them are in the same patch and you really want Xilonen if you're getting Hu Tao. It's not that Hu Tao doesn't have any other teams though, so if you love Hu Tao and you want to just save for her, totally fine to do. There's tons of strong teams. Just because it's best in slot doesn't mean it's the only thing you can do. I kind of want to put Shenyan in best in slot as well, because Xilonen is subject to change, like I don't know that for C1 Hu Tao, for sure Shilonen's going to outpace Shenyan. For C0, I'm not as sure. It could be that that Shenyan is still just as on par. It could be that Shenyan goes down here. I have a feeling it'll be here, by the way. Like, I have a feeling it'll be here. But just watch my Xilonen guide. It's a very simple fix. I'm going to put it here for now because right now it is for C0 Hu Tao best in slot option. But it's not the best in slot option, not the definitive best in slot option. When Xilonen is out, we'll have to wait and see. Eula, no, obviously. Yeah, these are DPSs, so I'll put them down here. Inari. Chiori is a strong option. Again, unless you're doing certain combos that are technically better but more but trickier to do. So yeah. No. Yai, I would say you maybe like a Chevreuse team with Yai. I'm gonna say nah though, because you just have Fischl. Fischl's just generally better. I'm gonna put Yelan in best in slot option. Even though Kokomi does have 3 Thrilling Tales and she does heal. You don't really need a healer on Hu Tao's teams unless you're running Farina, and then you don't really want Kokomi as your healer. So I'm going to put her in Na. I'm going to put Xingqiu. I don't know if I want to put him in strong or best in slot because double Hydra is still very used. He's still very comfy, but kind of like Zhongli, I think it's more comfy than it is strength. So I'm going to put him in strong option. But if you want to put him in best in slot option, I'm fine with that. That doesn't bother me. Diona, I'm going to put her in like decent or niche because she might steal some reactions, but she does provide the EM buff. Sucrose, I mean, it's more niche than it is decent. Like, it can be pretty good, but I don't think a lot of people are doing VVV Hu Tao with Sucrose, even though it is technically very good. Bennett, I'm going to put in strong option. Kazuha, also strong option for VV Vape stuff. Farina, absolutely a best in slot character. Baiju is definitely a strong option. I don't think it's as strong as Shenyan, but especially if the element is helpful, having Farina, Yelan, Baiju is actually quite good. You get some Burgeons. I like it a lot. Fischl, I'm going to put in decent. Under the right conditions, it could be a strong option, like as a tech for like Simon, or if you want to use Chevreuse for some reason with Hu Tao. Same with Mona, decent or niche. Same with Toma, Chevreuse, Yanfei, Layla. You get the idea. I don't want to crowd the whole thing up with a ton of 4 stars, but that's the idea for Hu Tao. I'll be making probably an updated Hu Tao guide after, like before her banner, like after I've tested her with Xilonen. But this is the kind of thing you want to consider for if you want to get Hu Tao and what kind of 5 stars go well with her and which ones you want to aim for. Overall, this is my rating for all 4 characters. Xilonen is good for most accounts, not all accounts. You saw there were a bunch of teams that didn't use her, but good for most accounts. Nahida, fallen off in the sense that not as many teams use her, but still amazing on the teams that need her. So good for lots of accounts. Hu Tao, good if you like them, and Chiori, solid if you like them. She just doesn't hit the right levels right now. So this is my final pull ranking for the characters, and let me know your thoughts. Let me know who you're gonna get. Check out my who are the must pull units, my wishing guide right there. It kind of talks about this philosophy that I've been doing here. But take care. Bye for now.